You ever walk into your own home and catch someone red-handed doing something so wild, so blatantly wrong? It feels like the universe is punking you? Yeah, that was me 2 days early pulling up to my quiet cabin on Pine Lake, only to see Karen Jennings, Queen Bee of the HOA, H-high-tailing across the lawn with her phone to her ear, shouting to 911 about some intruder breaking into, you guessed it, my house. I hadn't even cut the engine, and already I could hear her voice echoing off the lake, acting like she was catching a dangerous criminal, not the guy who just pays the taxes on the place. And all I could think standing there with my bags was, Karen, you have no idea what's actually going on inside. So the cops show up, sirens and everything, demanding to know who's inside. I just pointed at the door and said, why don't you see for yourself? You should have seen their faces when the truth came out. But let me back up a sec. You gotta understand how I got here, and why Karen's meltdown became the downfall of a whole criminal operation. 6 months back, I was a different man. 3 tours in Afghanistan, and a lifetime's worth of nights spent looking over my shoulder. And finally, I'd scraped enough to buy a little patch of peace. This wasn't some fancy lake house, just 2 bedrooms, a porch, an old dock, the kind of place where the loudest thing at night is a lawn on the water. It felt earned. You know, I needed quiet solitude, a chance to reset. The cabin came with automatic membership in the Pine Lake HOA, which sounded good on paper after all. Growing up around military bases, I figured rules kept things from getting messy. I just didn't know the rules were written and enforced by one person with a taste for control and an eye for other people's business. Karen Jennings never trusts someone who introduces themselves with a clipboard and a fake smile that doesn't reach their eyes. My second week there, she showed up as I was putting in security cameras. Not cheap ones either. Discreet pro-grade and only pointed at my own land. Karen rolls up like she owns a joint. All welcome to the neighborhood, with a side of those cameras violate section 12.4, and I'll need to inspect your welcome mat. No kidding. She wrote me up for having the wrong mat and spent half an hour waving a rule book thicker than a phone directory in my face. Now, here's where it gets weird. The same day, Karen dropped by. My cameras caught a stranger skulking around my place, testing doors, peeking through windows. Couldn't see a face, but the timing way too coincidental. And this kept happening. Every time I left for a supply run or a job interview, there'd be some sign someone had been there. Shadows on the camera's door handles check stuff just a little out of place. I asked my neighbor Jim, retired park ranger and unofficial Pine Lake historian, if this was normal. Jim just sighed, said, you met Kara, right? And recommended more cameras. Turns out 3 other folks had reported similar mystery visits in the last couple years, always when they were away. Then came the day I caught her. I'd forgotten some papers doubled back midday and spotted Karen herself ducking around the back of my cabin door, unlocked her perfume hanging in the air, a still warm mug on the counter, like she lived there. And on the footage, Karen unlocking my front door with a key, not just snooping, full-on search mode, poking through drawers, photographing documents, moving furniture. She was careful, but not careful enough. My hidden cameras caught everything. Years of training taught me to never confront until you've got the whole picture. So I started collecting evidence logs, videos, even timestamps matched with violation notices Karen had filed. My lawyer took one look and said, this is textbook felony breaking and entering trespassing, maybe stalking, but he warned me, going after the HOA president. Not simple, especially if she's cozy with the right people in town. Karen, meanwhile, amped up her campaign. Rumors flew that I was unstable, dangerous, classic smear job. People who used to wave now looked away. The HOA flooded me with violation notices for trash cans, dock placement, even the angle I parked my truck, and every evidence photo was shot from my property, often just outside my bedroom window. Enough was enough. So I got smart, filed a formal complaint backed up with proof. The HOA's response, a phone call never in writing, basically saying Karen claimed I was retaliating. Here's the twist the secretary let slip that before I bought my cabin, Karen's friend tried to buy it for a vacation rental and was blocked by the HOA. Suddenly, all the pieces clicked. Karen wanted my place gone. She'd worked with a realtor, had allies on the board, and was used to getting her way. Jim, always with the best intel, mentioned Karen had asked about my travel plans under the guise of community maintenance. That's how she always knew when to break in. So I set a trap, made sure half the lake heard me mention a week-long trip to California. Packed my truck, drove off, but instead of the coast, I booked a cheap hotel 30 miles away, eyes glued to my security feed. Didn't even take 6 hours. Karen rolls up, checks the coast is clear, then just strolls in with her copy of my key, watches photographs, rummages, even plugs something into my computer. Next day, she brings in 2 strangers, realtors or property assessors by the look, measuring, discussing renovations, acting like they already own the place. That's when Karen called. All hope your family emergency's okay, dripping with fake concern, fishing for when I'd be back. I played along, said maybe another week or 2, and she offered, can you believe this? To check on my property for me. The wolf offering to guard the hen house. This time I called the sheriff. Deputy Martinez said he'd help, but timing was key, so I told Karen I'd be away longer. Thanked her for watching over my place and set the stage. Martinez and I coordinated next time she broke in, I'd give the signal. Couple days later, I returned early, hid my truck, and waited. Karen showed up with a big duffel bag and someone else in tow. Not just snooping this time. She brought pro-grade surveillance gear, started setting up in my living room. I signaled. Martinez circled around, and just as they scrambled to pack up, he and I knocked on the door. Karen opened up white as a ghost. Her sidekick, Derek, a private investigator with a badge in his bag, looked like he'd seen this movie before. Turns out Karen hired him to dig up dirt, hoping to force me out and snag my cabin for a song. Their plan: find any leverage, run me off, and flip the property for profit. Thing is, they'd already done this to 6 other owners, lining Karen's pockets, and those of her investor friends. Martinez found contracts, surveillance logs, documents targeting other houses on the lake, when he pointed out federal wiretapping and surveillance laws. Karen's story changed by the second. First, Jim gave her a key, then the realtor, then maybe I forgot. I gave her one myself. Derek clammed up and asked for his lawyer. Martinez called in the feds. Now, here's where it really gets wild. Turns out Derek wasn't just a local snoop. He was under investigation by the FBI for running similar scams in multiple states, selling stolen personal info to identity thieves and real estate sharks. Karen's little HOA campaign was part of a much bigger operation. Over the next weeks, the FBI dug up everything illegal: election rigging, harassment campaigns, forged documents. Karen had been targeting me before I even moved in, making copies of my key during the sale, manipulating neighbors, turned the community against anyone who wouldn't play ball. Her partners planned a massive resort, and my cabin was the last piece. They'd already made millions, and I was the final holdout. When the dust settled, Karen pled out to a slew of federal charges. 8 years in prison, millions owed. Derek got 12 and lost every toy and dollar he ever stole. The investment group was wiped out, properties restored or sold to actual families. Pine Lake, little by little, started coming back to life as a real community again. If you ask me, the real lesson is never underestimate someone just because they play by the rules or someone who doesn't. Document everything. Trust your gut. And don't be afraid to stand up to bullies, even when they hide behind a rule book. Because sometimes justice comes from a hidden camera, a well-timed phone call, or just refusing to be scared off your own land. And now the HOA has term limits, real oversight, and a community that actually watches out for each other, not for ways to kick you out. Folks are still debating who was right, who was wrong, and how much power any one person should ever have in a neighborhood. So I'll leave you with this. What would you have done if you caught your own HOA president running a scam like that? Do you think HOAs keep communities safe or just make life miserable for people who want a little peace? Drop your thoughts below. I bet there's more stories out there than anyone realizes.